And that car just heading round to the start of another lap. Nice bit of vinyl edge on there. Waiting to see the gap is substantial now. 3 minutes 25 seconds at the end of lap 33 between the 911 Porsche and the 4 Porsche. That's not a real gap though, because that 4 car was coming into the pits.
Yeah, the gap is actually something more like 5 minutes
because
back
it's
to the number 15
correct.
Phoenix Audi, which is really in second place.
Correct.
So strangely, having been one of the closest VLN races we've had this year, it's now turned into one of the biggest gaps first to second of the VLN races we've had this year.
I think we'll see it come down, because I think we'll see that 911 car do a precautionary stop.
I think you're probably right, apart from anything else, because it will reduce the race distance for it.
Well, the other thing is that if they wait till the end of this lap, they'll probably be able to do it in as much time as it takes them to do it.
Yep. Yeah, no, fair point. So the car has just set off onto its 35th lap, and with that potential pit stop for the 911 car, we're either looking at 37 or 38 laps for the race distance. And the message that the whole track is now wet, all the way around, and
just a quick note, the SP8 leader is still the number 139. That's in 13th position now for that Ferrari 458. Cup 3, 979, the Porsche Cayman GT4 Club Sport. That's in 12th position for the 979. The H4 leader is GT3 Cup Porsche 588, now with little or no competition after the K3's demise. Cup 2 leader, the 101 Porsche GT3 Cup car. You're getting the idea about this, aren't you? That is in 10th position for the 101 team. SP7 leader is that 62 Porsche 911 GT3 America, the Gig Speed car. Seeing where the Aston is a little bit further down. Aston is the 134, isn't it? So not ending with a chance of the lead. The TCR leaders just outside the top 20 now. That's the Audi RS3 LMS, the 801 team. The Cup 5 leader is the 691 BMW M235i Racing Cup car. Cup X is the Crossbow GT4, the 926 guy in 9th position. SPX is the Mercedes AMG GT4, the remaining one of those cars is the 54 car, that's the one with the white stripes on the side. Saw the problems earlier on with the 52 car stopping. Shout out as well for the Moore Cameron Porsche in Cup 2, the 111 car. Now, Marino Frankitti's driven with those guys before, regulars in VLN, sitting in 17th, solidly inside the top 20, and second in Cup 2. Bill Cameron and William Moore in that car. Great to see that. It's good news. More class leaders with the SP3 leader 270 and 48th position. SP6, another BMW M3 E46, the venerable E46, that's the 198 car in 49th position. SP8T, another Porsche Cayman GT4 Club Sport for the 320 team. So plenty of class leaders around the top 50 or so as we head into the last half an hour.
I think the fact that they split VLN into so many classes means that it's kind of inevitable that you get class leaders moving up, because even as people fall by the wayside, just another car becomes a class leader. And as you say, within the top 20, there's certainly most of the classes that are fast enough are represented, even though they may be 2 and 3 laps behind. I mean, if you go down the top, you're
9 class leaders.
You're getting 3 laps of the race circuit, though, so there is quite a broad span there.
9 class leaders in the top 20, so that's certainly holds up what you're seeing there, Paul. Just on half an hour to go, and Dumas, or the 911 should I say, of Manthey Racing has gone through, and as far as I can see, he did not stop. So here comes the 4 now on full wet tyres, which we don't believe is the choice of the car in the lead. The last lap for the leader, and 9 minutes 40. Now, what sort of lap time has the number 4 done? We'll wait for the hamster to run around the wheel a bit. 5 minutes 27 seconds is the gap between first and second, with half an hour to go. Don't pack this up yet, because if the rain continues and the 911 is, as we think, not on full wet tyres, or as we have decided, perhaps, they're not on full wet tyres. Third place at something like 7.5 seconds gap back from second is the Phoenix Audi.
That's where the race is on for, isn't it? It's the race for second place between the Falcon Porsche and the Phoenix Audi. If I think the Phoenix Audi, is that going to be on wet tyres, or is that going to be on a Dunlop?
They were on wets.
The on wets.
Yeah.
Okay. So we've got like-for-like comparison, comparison between those two, and a gap of something under 10 seconds separating the 4 and the 15, and then Zander in the number 8 Haribo Mercedes is equally not that far behind. So
also on full wet.
Also on full wet. So the cars, we may not have a battle for the lead, 5-minute gap to the leader, but the next 3 cars separated by less than 20 seconds, 25 seconds, something like that.
And still plenty of opportunity. It's the Nordschleife, for goodness sake, so there's plenty of opportunity to make mistakes in the dry, never mind when it's this tricky. A 9:40 by the leader last time, a 9:46 by the 15 car, a 9:34 from Van der Zande. You have to count out the 4 car because they were in the pit lane. So the gap is 5:27 to second, then it's 7 seconds from second to third, and then it is 40 seconds from third to fourth.
So it's slightly bigger than I said back to the Van der Zande Mercedes, but of the 3 of them, it's the Mercedes which is lapping the most quickly, isn't it?
Correct.
So we could well have the, you described it as a handicap race earlier on, the handicap situation for second, third and fourth places, where the 3 cars each closing in upon each other in the last half hour. And
if, as we posited earlier on, Paul, the Mercedes-Benz does not have an advantage in a straight line because it's got more drag, then wet weather conditions are fabulous for it, because it will have a little more downforce.
Yeah.
The Corrado still running, by the way, one of our couple of VWs that we've spotted as fan favourites. The VW Jetta was another one. The Corrado still running with 28 minutes to go, and that is what number? I can't remember. I think it was 634, wasn't it? Let's see if I can find it. Shouldn't be that difficult to spot. I can't. Right down VW, no, that's gone. So inside the last half an hour now, so from now, your pit stops are however long you need them to be. There is no minimum pit stop time. I may have done that VW Corrado down there. I've gone too far down. Is it inside the top 100? It might be, you know.
actually find it. Here's the Manthey Porsche coming in for its pit stop.
Right. Would
So
be handy to know what tyres come off that and what come on.
5 laps completed for the 911.
Just fuel for that car. So no sign of changing the Dunlop tyres, which are... I can't see. So, sorry, change the Michelin tyres they'll have, won't they?
Yes, they're on Michelin's, but that is Kevin Estre behind the wheel. So we now know.
I think they were wet.
I think they must have been.
Because they had yellow on the side, not white.
Yeah, they didn't have the white sticker that the intermediates have. The cameraman was getting nice and close to the driver, but he just needed to put the camera down to have a look at the tyres, which we saw for the Falcon pit stops, and that was very useful. So this pit stop ticking away for the 911. It's a 6-lap stint, and he'll have 3 at most laps to do when he resumes.
Here's the 7 Black Falcon coming around to get its lap back, and that will put it just 1 lap off the lead.
No, it'll put it on to, it'll put it onto the lead lap.
Okay.
And that also enables
right.
the 62, which is with it as well, which will also be getting back.
That's going to complete 34.
That's 34 laps. Yeah.
The leader's just done 35 and is back out. So we put Kevin Estre in that, didn't we? I don't think they'd changed tyres.
I don't think it was changed driver either. I think it was a fuel-only stop.
Right, that would make sense. That's what you do in the last half an hour. So once again, Olaf Manthey, he's got the tactics on this race absolutely spot on.
But credit, I think, where it's due to Kevin Estre, because I mean, certainly when he we don't get all the driver information, but we're pretty sure that Romain Dumas was at the wheel at the start of the race. But immediately after and it was a typically Manthey circumspect start to the race. They were running in 3rd place, there or thereabouts, and they went down to 4th place. Car came into the pits, and immediately it came out of the pits, it came alive.
Yes.
And I was slightly tongue-in-cheek speculating that it would be Kevin Estre, but he really did take the car by the scruff of its neck. Whether or not Mathieu Jaminet has driven it at all, I don't know, because Mathieu is also down to drive another of the Porsches, the other Manthey Porsche, during this race. So it might have just been shared by Romain Dumas and Kevin Estre for the duration of the race. But superb driving by Kevin for, you said it, John, very difficult conditions for a large percentage of the race.
And in fact, the number 7 didn't get its lap back either, because that's just gone on to the back now, and the 911 just disappeared in front of it before that happened. Hello to Mike Headland, waking up in California to the last few minutes of the wet VLN. Mike, you're missing a cracker here. You would have loved this. Started off dry, then a bit of drizzle, then it dried, then it came down here again. Nobody really knowing what tyres they wanted to be on. Couldn't decide which ones to be on at half the time. But you'll not be surprised to know that Olaf Manthey and the 911 Porsche team have handled those difficult conditions most consistently, and given the drivers, and particularly Kevin Estre, the tools to do the job best. Although note should be made that the number 8 Haribo Mercedes-Benz, which clearly wasn't happy early on, and certainly wasn't happening in the quote-unquote intermediate conditions, has also had a drive-through for missing its pit stop window.
Stop and go.
Stop and go, excuse me, yeah.
Yes, and
Renger van der Zande in that car has been sparkling.
He has, yes, I mean, he's made the best of a bad job. I think, you know, we were talking earlier on, I was talking about the way that teams decide which tyres to put on. The Haribo car got caught out twice. Once was misfortune, you could say. The weather wasn't bad. They made a pit stop and they kept slicks on the car. It then suddenly got worse. The second time, it was a known risk that they were taking. The weather again got worse. But you know, teams like Manthey, I know that Lant Motorsport Audi customer racing bring along not just weather forecasters, but weather reporters who are reporting what the weather is doing in the neighbourhood. That enables them to get an advantage, and Haribo got caught out there.
Change on track last time around as the number 4 car has gone through in second place and has held on to that as it's come through just now. And this will be now an opportunity for Renger van der Zande to try and chase down that number 15. So I wonder what tyres they're on and in what state they're in right now. I thought they were on full wets. Yeah. Can't imagine them were on anything else because they haven't pitted for a while. And they were out there in the worst of the weather.
No, I think that you're absolutely right. That must mean that even if the 15 is on full wets, they're struggling on their full wets. Yes, I mean, it was a 9:42 for the Phoenix Audi as compared to a 9:26 for the Falcon Porsche. So the gap went up on that lap alone by 16 seconds. So yeah, it went up to, it was about 16 seconds, wasn't it? And now it's gone up to something like 23 seconds between second and third place cars. And perhaps, as you say, we need to keep an eye on Van der Zande in the Haribo Mercedes, because he is 22 seconds behind the Phoenix Audi. So great running there by Van der Zande. If he can make 20 seconds in 20 minutes, then we've got a race on for the final podium slot. We've got a Porsche in the lead and Porsche in second place, and then a battle between Audi and Mercedes for the third podium slot.
My appreciation to Matt Guest, who found the Corrado for me. It's 6.24 and running third in H2. So they've got a podium finish in class, those guys, as it stands at the moment. Chapeau, gentlemen. Yeah, 9:26, 9:42, 9:34 for Van der Zande on his 34th lap. Haven't got his 35th lap time yet on that screen. I've never had to push refresh so much.
Indeed. Equally having to switch between timing screens, one of which is more up to date than the other.
Good fun. You've got to hand it to the drivers of the 911 though, Paul, because they've not been rattled at any stage. They've not necessarily been the fastest guys out there, or the best of that car is an 8:14.7, which is by no means the worst. Interestingly, I think the fastest lap out there when we had full dry conditions was by the number 8 Haribo Mercedes, an 8:14.1. Can't see anything quicker than that.
And when you bear in mind that the Manthey car only started in third place on the grid in the first place, it's a very typical Manthey approach. I mean, this is VLN 5. They've won 3 of them already. The only one, they have only not won one of them. So they just know how to approach. I mean, we've seen, you and I have been going to Nürburgring 24-hour races for a long time, and we've seen Manthey's approach to the 24-hour race. And Manthey's approach to VLN races will be just as serious, just as professional as for the Nürburgring 24 hours. Olaf himself has participated in motor racing at the highest level at World Championship sports car racing level, and he's a very calm individual. You know, I mean, he enjoys his racing. He's hugely competitive, but he does it all with a sense of great calmness, doesn't he? And that, in a team manager, in a boss, is exactly what you need. You don't need somebody flapping around, waving their arms around in Italian fast fashion. Meanwhile, Fricadelli is causing you some squeals, John.
Yeah, sorry about that. 5th place car going up the inside into the Grand Prix Loop hairpin, the short hairpin. It's the 31 car we're talking about, the red and white machine. The remaining, well, the better placed of the 2 Fricadelli cars, the 30 car, coming into quite heavy contact, it looked like, with the number 1 on the opening lap, on the opening corner of the opening lap, which left both of them laps down. Just diving down the inside of a Porsche Cayman there and having to take rather more curb than its driver probably wanted to. Now going past a very stock-looking Opel Astra that in yellow with a matte black bonnet looks like it should be on the streets of British West Hartlepool as a taxi.
The 30 car also had further contact later on in the race, John.
Yes,
so,
well remembered.
The bad luck on the Fricadelli team with Sabina Schmidt's car rather than with the one that is up there, the only unlapped, the last of the unlapped runners, the 31 car with Norbert Ziedler sharing the driving duties with Alex Muller.
Hello to David Harvey, who is sitting opposite pit out, having enjoyed VLN 5, wet, dry, and already found new places to watch from, and has booked for Nürburgring 24 in 2018. What a smart person you are. Travel Destinations will help anyone else out with that. They have their own private campsite, which I went to this year, and it's absolutely brilliant. Proper lavatory blocks, flush toilets, a swimming pool, a bar, and electrical connections for your tents and/or camping area. Very nicely done.
Can't beat camping with electricity.
Yes, that sort of elevates it. Hello to In Pit Lane, also down under. Phillip Island looking less likely as the VLN 5 reaches its conclusion. Sorry everybody, they say, but blame the guys at RSL for their coverage. Thank you very much. In Pit Lane doing fine work of covering all of the Antipodean motorsport and further afield for the Antipodean audience. Good set of people down there. So what will be the start of the penultimate lap now for the leader, the number 911, very yellow, very green machine. Out on the Nürburgring itself, and coming back to finish a lap is the BMW in Falcon colours, the M6 of course. Still looks horribly greasy and pretty yucky out there. 9:37 last time around by our leader, 9:26 by the 4 car, 9:42 by the 15, but it's 5 minutes and 15 seconds. No way is this going to be prized out the gap and grasped now, surely, of the 911 Manthey Porsche. The VW Jetta, our other favourite VW, also running still. That's the 638 and 4th in H2. Magic. I think the Jetta and the Corrado are my new 2 favourite cars here, and it would be hard for me to decide which one I would prefer to race in. I think possibly the Jetta, just because it looks more stock. But if the lads from the Corrado need a driver, then I'd be happy to do me rookie laps and come and drive with you. Of course, it's drying up now, and the cloud is breaking up for the last 14 minutes or so. So, this 6-hour race going the way at the moment of the majority of the 4-hour races this year in VLN. This is the 5th round of the VLN, and 3 of the 4 previous events have gone, the trophies for position 1 have gone just round the corner to Manthey, and it really is just round the corner. They can, and in fact sometimes do, drive their cars back to the shop.
I was just looking down to see what we haven't mentioned Tracy Crone at all, and
no.
I was thinking, whatever happened to Tracy? Car only completed 9 laps, unfortunately. He was in the 303 TTRS Audi.
Oh, good car.
And lovely car, running in the SP3T class, but the car sadly only completed 9 laps, and then it was parked out of the race. So that car.
Tracy driven here before, Paul? I think he has, hasn't he?
I don't think so.
Ah.
I think it was his debut here, driving inevitably with Nick Johnson. But the TTRS then, as I say, sadly, a retirement fairly early on.
SP3T is quite a high class to be able to drive as a rookie, but okay. No?
3T is for...
That's up to, actually, it's up to 2 litre turbocharged.
Turbochargers.
So it's under 300 horsepower is what you've got to drive, I think, for your first.
Yes, over 1750 up to 2 litres, and Tracy then driving with Nick Johnson, but as I say, not in luck here this weekend.
Shame they only did 9 laps, because if that was an all-wheel drive car, which it might have been, then as the weather got worse, they would have done better.
Indeed.
That makes sense. The unmistakable growl, or low revving rumble, perhaps more. It's a very visceral sound that Mercedes makes, isn't it? Really does sound angry, but in a sort of understated way. So 911 Porsche leads, 4 Porsche leads, 15 Audi leads, 8 Mercedes AMG GT.
And the Mercedes continues to close in on the Frank Stippler Audi. There goes the Audi out onto the Nordschleife now. The Mercedes is still heading up the hill towards the S-bend.
Yeah.
I forget which S-bend that is, the Vidal chicane, I think it's called.
Yes, because you don't use the Schumacher S's on this.
Which is a slightly easier chicane, and then it goes through. So this lap...
Well, that's not as much as it was.
No, it's definitely... The gap is definitely coming down.
You said 20 seconds in 20 minutes, and it's...
Yes, I mean,
well, it can bear... It must be almost able to see him.
Yes, it's 19 seconds now, so he's...
Well, he hasn't taken that much out then.
No, that's on lap 36. Yes, so...
I haven't had them go through on my screen yet, so that tells you how long it's taken mine to update. And I seem to have misplaced another one that you've got there, which that's twice that's happened to me. Need Jeremy here to lap chart us.
Yeah.
Jeremy, stand there with a pen and a paper.
I'm not sure that he could even do that without time for his screens to do it on. Interesting, this race I'm looking at doing 38 laps, whereas last year, admittedly a dry weather race, the 6 hours ran to 43 laps, so
really?
We're quite a long way off what was achieved last year in the 6 hours.
Hasn't been any big, I suppose there was a bit of slow zone quite early on, wasn't there, that was out there for quite a long time, up by Hoa Act for that.
Yes, exactly. So so we had the Hoa Act, we had a couple of incidents, the Tiergarten chicane, there were a couple of things that we didn't see but we knew were going on at Schwedenkreuz, and so I think there have been quite a few yellow zones around, plus the wet weather, which has accounted basically for 5 laps off the distance that was achieved last year. As still looking out of the windscreen of the 8 Haribo Mercedes, looking up to see where, if in sight, the 15 Audi. Frank Stippler will just loom into view at some point, but I think it's going to be a tall order, even for Renger van der Zande.
Getting this, can you check your ticker for me and tell me if you've got the 62 SP7 latest? I'm without any kind of timing screen at the moment.
6. It's dropped 2 laps behind, and it was 1 lap behind, so yes, I think that is possible. But 62, that SP7 car, which has gone so well, I think it's one of your fan favourites, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Here comes the race leader to cross the line and start his last lap.
Correct. By the way, this is Tracy Krohn's, or would have been Tracy Krohn's 3rd VLN this season.
3rd VLN?
Yeah.
Okay.
So he must be doing his permit, I would have thought. Oh, hello. Timing screen's just coming to life again. At least one of them are. I wonder if it makes a difference if I put it into Polish. Yeah, that 62 is dropping down and is stuck in the 3rd sector. Meantime, the 9, that's awful luck for them because they have dominated that SP7 category. Headed only once by the 77, which then had its own problems, has been in the pit lane. So the 77 now is within, well, next time it comes round, the 77 should be scored. That's the Rent-A-Race Familia car, the Christian Menzel and Dmitry Lukovnikov car. So that should be scored in the lead of that class the next time it comes through. Leader starting last lap now.
No, this isn't over yet for Van der Zande. I'm trying to build this up. So remember, he will get an extra lap because even if the 6 hours is up by the time he crosses the line, and it's actually not going to be 6 hours up by the time he crosses the line, but he'll then get another lap. So in effect, he'll get till 6 hours and about 6 minutes of the race elapsed in order to try and catch the number 15. Now, on that last lap, Van der Zande took 12 seconds off the gap between himself and whoever's it, let's say Stippler at the wheel of the Phoenix Audi. The gap is 19 seconds. So, okay, instead of taking 12 seconds, he's got to take 19 seconds off on this last lap. But he will actually get an extra lap in order to do it. So I think this is on for Van der Zande to close the gap on his very last lap of the race. They're not going to be able to catch up with the Falcon Porsche, so it is going to be a Porsche 1-2. But the race for 3rd place, whilst Audi has been strongly placed and it never actually quite got... Yes, it did lead the race for 1 lap, didn't they? The number 15 car did lead the race for 1 lap. Looks like he's not even going to be able to finish on the podium. And I suspect, John, that it's to do either with being on wet tyres, which are just too old to clear away the water properly, or they're struggling on intermediates.
Very old intermediates.
Which are doing a great job, but not being able to deal with a Mercedes on full wets.
Yes. Yeah. I'd agree with that. Imperatori's just gone through to start his last lap. Ragginger on the Dottinger and on the wet part of the Dottinger, or should I say Ragginger's car. This is the Ford Falcon car on full wet tyres, remember. They went to intermediates, it didn't work for them, they had to come back in. And now he is sitting on the wettest part of the track that he can find.
I correct you slightly in that I think intermediates were the right thing at the time. I don't think if they'd stayed on wets that would necessarily have helped them very much. I think because the track was drying so much, remember we were talking about whether
it was slicks. Yeah, and in fact the 8 car went on to slicks. Yeah. Yes, that's so true.
I think at the time that they went on to the intermediates, it was the right tyre to be on. They then got off the intermediates and onto the wets. And that was the right thing to do
because it rained again.
Because it rained again.
That's a fair point.
So I don't think they were caught out by that. I think what they were caught out by was the pace of the 911 when the track was in the intermediate stage and they were on the wet tyres and they weren't quite working for them well enough. But here's the Audi then.
Doing the same thing, Paul, albeit on the other side of the track. Driver's left and then sweeping across to driver's right. And where is the Van der Zande car?
7, 8, 9, 10. He's about 12 seconds behind.
Yeah.
And he's got this lap to do to catch up that 12 seconds. So it's entirely doable, this, for Van der Zande. It may look like the gap is big, and certainly by eye, when you look at them coming through there.
Well, he took 12 seconds out of him last lap.
Exactly, and he can do it again. So I think
see who's in that car. Is that Stippler that's finishing it off, or is it Sturting?
I don't know, I'm afraid. Stippler, I think.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
So Frank Stippler, we think, at the wheel of the 15 Phoenix Audi. Van der Zande, we know, at the wheel of the number 8 Mercedes, the Haribo car, and that goes through fact, the lap times on that occasion pretty much identical. So Frank Stippler, or possibly it was Van der Zande making a mistake somewhere, but the gap has stayed pretty much consistent, 20 seconds. So last lap for these two. Is Frank Stippler going to be able to hang on in the Audi to keep that podium position?
Well, it depends which helmet Peter Terting is using, because he has got two different designs. It was red and something, that helmet, which I think is Frank's helmet. Through goes the Aston Martin GT8, second in SP8, that car. Being run from the Aston Centre. Aston Martin Centre at the Nordschleife. That a unique car, that GT8, the only one converted to race car specification. 21st overall and won its class at the 24 hours. Here at the Nordschleife, that is. The 8 car going out with Renger van der Zande at the wheel onto the Nordschleife for the final time, which will be its 38th and final time through the Hatzenbach, and he's pushing, no doubt in my mind at all. He's clearly got the phone message from the pit wall.
Renger's got to win it or bin it here. He's going to have to just push as hard as he can, hard as the car will let him go, and hope that he has a clear track as well. I mean, we're talking about this cushion that the drivers have to allow for themselves as they go through, and Van der Zande is really just going to have to push and maybe not leave as much of a cushion on this final lap. He knows it's the last lap. The 6 hours has just about ticked away.
Phenomenal lap for whoever was driving the 4 car last time around. I can't remember who was in that now, but a 9:06 when everyone else is doing teens or 20s. 9:08, by the way, for the number 3 BMW, the Falcon car, in 7th position. So conditions getting a little better, but you've got to have the car underneath you to take advantage of them.
And tyres that are sufficiently suitable, which I think is what you meant by the car underneath you. I think it's Klaus Bachler at the wheel of the number 4 car, and Klaus has certainly driven a blinder of a race in that.
Good driver, man. I think he's underrated, Bachler. I really do. There's such a huge amount of talent for Porsche to draw on their GT programme, and they'll be adding to it, of course, at the end of this year with a couple of drivers from their P1 hybrid programme who are still on GT contracts who will come back into the fold. We've been led to believe that the P1 drivers on a GT contract will be retained as well. So heaven knows where all of those go to, or how many extra cars Porsche are going to be running around the world with that new RSR. The leader is already on the Dottinger Ruhr, and this, Paul Truswell, has been another display of Montai excellence on what is absolutely his home circuit. You can say the same for Phoenix as well, in fairness. They're pretty close to the track, as are a number of the teams here. But once again, the right car for the circumstances, the right drivers at the right time on the right tyre.
Yes, and just to confirm, Mathieu Jaminet has been at the wheel of the car, so we're told on the ticker. So it might have just been the two of them, Romain Dumas and Kevin Estre, but Mathieu Jaminet has been driving the 911 as well, and it has been absolutely faultless performance, John. They've not wrong, they've done their pit stops when they've had to, they've had good weather forecasting, and the car has looked immaculate. Out of 5 now in VLN races in 2017 makes it not quite a full house, but a pretty impressive performance from the Manthey team. Hats off to them, superb race.
And they crossed the line. The 38th and final lap is completed. Now the interest will be what's going on behind them. The 4 should come home and make it a 1-2 for Porsche, and Falcon Tyres will be delighted with that finish. But the interest is between the 15 Phoenix Audi and the 8 Haribo EMG GT. Checkered flag out for some of the other class leaders coming through there as well,
including the number 7 Christodoulou Black Falcon Mercedes. That's not one of the class
Sixth
leaders.
Position that car, 1 lap off the 2 laps off the lead.
Yeah, at least some British interest in that car. Only 1 lap off the lead.
Yep, sorry, I hadn't counted his last lap. My apologies.
The screen catches you out as much as it possibly can. So that was the Hubert Haupt car, which Adam Christodoulou and Manuel Metzger were driving, and that possibly was the leading Pro-Am car. 8 Van der Zande, of course, is the leading Pro-Am car.
9:16 on the last lap for Dumas 911, for the winning 911, already in behind the safety car, ready to bring it back around, stopping them going out to play one more time on the Nordschleife, pointing and waving. But I'm pretty certain that the driver knows exactly where he is going to go at the end of this. Still waiting for the 4 machine to come in. Doors held slightly ajar by the driver of the 911, trying to get a bit of extra ventilation in there, as well as hand out, waving to the hard-working marshals who've had every single type of weather condition today.
There's Kevin Estre, who completed the run for Manthey. We know the sequence started off with Dumas, then Estre, then Jaminet. And I think Estre then might have got back in to do the rest of the race, because he certainly stayed in at the last pit stop. Here comes the second place car, though, John, on the Döttinger for the last time, the Falcon Motorsports Porsche 911.
Yeah, with a bit of extra luck, they would. I'm not sure they ultimately had the pace of the 911, the number 911 today, but they would have been closer with a bit of extra luck. The pit stop schedule fell kindly with the weather conditions for the guys at Manthey. Still had to make the right decisions, don't get me wrong, but it was a harder choice for the guys in the Falcon team.
And I think there were times when the Falcon tyres worked for them than the Michelins worked on the Manthey car, but then more of the time when the Michelins worked better for Manthey than the Falcons did for their car. So,
and it was such a dominating win that Estre is out of the car before the second place car comes round to get the checkered flag.
It's so depressing when that happens.
Johannes Gragliga says, Manthey, absence of mistakes equals win. Can't
argue with that.
The car is immaculate. As it rolled out, it's a little bit dirty around the edges. Don't forget the 4 car was off the circuit as well when it was out on intermediate tyres when the weather conditions didn't favour that. Now, here comes the Phoenix Audi, and it's got a gap. Can't see the Mercedes-Benz behind it. It's at the end of the Döttinger, so it will be 2 Porsches and an Audi then on the podium. So well driven at the end there. That's been a good last couple of laps by the Phoenix driver, because they were not favourite at one stage with Renger van der Zande on full attack mode. But it will be Phoenix in 3rd position. Yeah,
I think what was happening there was Stippler in the Audi was saving the tyres earlier on, getting us all a bit worried. Here comes van der Zande now across the line, so it was certainly less than 10 seconds at the checkered flag. So van der Zande continued to push right to the checkered flag, but I suspect Stippler was conserving the tyres early on in order to ensure that he'd be able to have, as you mentioned, John, a car underneath him as the race reached its closing stages, which would then he would be able to push on. And those last couple of laps from Stippler were very well matched indeed against the comparative lap times that were being put in by van der Zande in the Mercedes. So 2 Porsches 1st and 2nd, Audi in 3rd place. 4th place was the Mercedes-Benz. In 5th place will come home another Porsche in the shape of the Fricadelli Racing Team car that Alex Muller shared with Norbert Ziedler. We've just seen the Opel Manta Foxtail car come across the line to take its class
Kissling
win.
Motorsport car, yeah.
The Kissling, yeah, that's the team entrant, and that will also take its class win. And here's the Ferrari coming across the line as well. The rest of the field continuing to cross the line.
Yeah, that's a good event again for Manthey. The class winners. Cup 2 was the best of the non-SP9 runners, believe it or not. The number 101 car coming home in 9th position after all of that excitement at the end. The H4 leader was the 588. That was the class without Corrado in it, I seem to remember. Well, they came home 10th overall. Cup 3, 11th overall, the 979. SP8, the 139, the Ferrari, in 12th position at the end there. Bringing SP7 home, the 77 confirmed then. The Rent-A-Race Familia car that battled for so long with the 62, which had a mechanical issue and lost some 3 or 4 laps, so was stopped a good half an hour, 40 minutes before the end. In SPX, the 54 did win that category. That's the Hamprecht car. In Cup 5, it was the 691. That was 19th. And the top 20 was another class winner, the Cup X car, the 926. SPAT winner, 21st, the 320. TCR, the 801 Audi, in 23rd position. Did think the TCR cars would do better today with that damp conditions, but I suppose with 350 horsepower under your right foot and no action control, they can get a bit lively, he said. The V6 winner was the 435 car in 28th position. SP10 in 30th, the 188 car. Then scrolling down, next class winner was down in 48th position, the number 198, the SP6 car. SP3 winner was the 270 in 48th position. V4 in 50th position was the 492. Cup 1. The Strike Check OPC Astra Cup car, 51st position for leader and Volta Strike Check. Cup SP8T, excuse me, our next class winner was 56th, and that was the 151 car. V5, the Van der Linde 468 car in 59th position. VT2 in 71st position was the 494. Cup 4 class in 73rd position was the 533. SP3T in 82nd position was won by 315. SP2T by 390. H2, which was the class I think that had the VW Vento in it, 617 won that in 87th position. And I think our final class winner was V3 in 99th position, the 520. But let me just skim down to make sure I haven't let anybody else. Oh no, 116th, the 549 V2 winner. And by my reckoning, that is all of the class completed. I think that was a pretty decent race, and once again Olaf Manthey and his team proving that it's about knowing this track and knowing what to do on this track. It's seldom here, I'm not going to say never, but seldom here, Paul, about outright pace. They had good pace, and they had the pace when it mattered, but you've got to say that was as perfectly a judged race as I've seen for many, many a long year.
Yeah, I think the key is what you just said. You have to have the pace when it matters. And there were a couple of moments where even if their absolute pace wasn't record-breaking stuff, it was better than everybody else. And there was one point when the weather conditions were a little bit mixed. It was one thing on one part of the circuit, one thing on the other part of the circuit. So whatever tyres you had on, they weren't perfect. But the gap went from about 10 seconds between the two Porsches to all of a sudden it was 45 seconds between the two Porsches. And
yes, there was that one lap, wasn't there, when the three cars had come across the line pretty much together, and then it was almost like the 911 just pulled the pin and it disappeared.
And that's where the relative pace does matter, even if it's not a case of absolute pace. But you got to hand it to Olaf Manthey. A lot of these things, there is no one single thing that you put your finger on and say that car won the race because of Michelin tyres, because it was a Porsche, because it was Kevin Estre. No, not one of those single things won the race for them. It's the whole package. You hear drivers, teams, managers talking about it all the time. It's the whole package. But Olaf Manthey has this checklist that he goes through. He has his team of people that he goes to and talks to and says, have you done this? Have you done that? Have you done that? Everybody knows what their job is. They know what their role is. As we received the tweet saying no mistakes, the car came into the pits, it was refueled, it was put tyres put on it, it was sent on its way again. It didn't break the minimum pit stop time. Nothing went wrong. The car itself was immaculate. It was kept away from the barriers. It didn't come into contact with any other car. All of those things are so important in making sure that you get to the flag and you do so successfully. So a very commanding, and I won't say it was a straightforward win for Manthey, but that 3-minute gap at the end of the race really does tell its own story. A further very nearly minute back to the third placed Phoenix Audi, which I think is probably the best that they could have hoped for.
Yes.
And in the end, the gap third to fourth was just 12 seconds back to the Haribo Mercedes.
And don't forget, that was a 3-minute gap, which included the 911 doing an additional stop to that which was the number that was made by the second place car.
Yes,
and that was a luxury that they had at the end.
Yeah.
One suspects if they had been racing and they didn't have that, they probably would have kept Estre going on the tyres he was on.
Yes, I think they. Well, I'm not actually sure that they did change the tyres at that final stop, but certainly we didn't see it happening on the screen. If it had been a tyre change, it was done very rapidly at the beginning of the stop. But yes, that extra stop then for them, which because they had a 5-minute margin, they could take the luxury of doing it whenever they wanted to, rather than necessarily being constrained by the minimum pit stop time. Good performance as well by the Fricadelli team. They brought their Porsche home, number 31, on the lead lap, having lost the other car very much earlier on in the race. And back in 6th place, a bit of disappointment probably for Black Falcon with their car. Again, a couple of extra pit stops for them into number 7, and an incident out on the circuit really meant that they finished a lap down on the rest of the field.
Yeah, and don't forget, we lost the
62 car, which we lost from the
leader in SP7.
Leader in SP7 with just 3 or 4 laps before the end.
We also lost the Philip Eng, Marcus Paltala car, which you've got to think those two would have revelled in the conditions of later on, albeit in the BMW, which didn't seem to like the wet conditions as much as the Audi or the Porsche.
Well, yes, but the BMW that we are comparing against is the Falcon tyres.
Yes, fair point.
The Rowe Racing were running on Michelin's, Rowe Racing were running on Dunlop tyres, and so that might have been a very different kettle of fish indeed.
Yes, it's a fair point, well made. Great run by some of the lesser class cars that we didn't have a chance to mention, and 9th position for a Cup 2 class. The number 101 car, which I think is fantastic. That was the other Gigaspeed car. We had the onboard on that car. That was John Schaffner and Janine Hill with Arno Klassen winning the Porsche Carrera Cup 2 class. And they were inside the top 10. Also, great run for the H4 winner in 10th position as well. And that was the, if I look up there, 588 car. So that is a little further down Paul's entry list here. 588 was the TAM Racing 2-driver team of Ralph Schall and Christopher Gerhard in another Porsche 911 GT3 Cup car. So, old Cup cars, I'm telling you people, that's the way to go endurance racing. And the couple of Cayman GT4 Club Sports there as well in Cup 3, 979 and 960. They had a good battle. See the Z4 GT4 in 14th position, still with some life in that car yet. I just noticed that in 15th position, the 77 SP7 leader pitted on the last lap. Now, that's odd for me, because does that mean they saw the checkered flag or they didn't see the checkered flag? But the 62 won't get the win because it wasn't running at the end.
No, you do have to see the checkered flag in VLN racing, but I've got a feeling that in VLN racing you can see the checkered flag in the pit lane.
Okay.
That's not physically see it, but from the regulatory point of view,
Cross the line in the pit lane.
Yes, crossing the line in the pit lane is allowed. I think I need to check that, but
we'll stay with the broadcast for you here in sound and vision for the podium celebrations that will come up in a wee moment's time. I'll take this opportunity to remind you that it's midweek motorsport on Wednesday at 8 o'clock UK time, and my part of that will be from VIR, all the usual features, of course. Then next weekend, a triple header of IMSA racing, Friday, Saturday and Sunday. We have got ELMS on Saturday and Sunday, and we've got the Portimao 24-hour series race on Friday, Saturday and Sunday. How the heck you decide how to do that, Paul?
Just to go back to the previous question, there is a virtual line in the pit lane, and if you cross the virtual line in the pit lane after the end of race signal has been shown, in other words, a checkered flag, then you are classified as if you had crossed the line on the circuit. So coming into the pits at the end of the race doesn't disqualify you.
Great racing all the way down the field today again, and lovely to see the variety of cars, not just all the usuals. Yes, it's the Porsches and the BMWs and more and more Toyota GT86 now, but the Clios and the Seat Super Coopers, and of course our two personal favourites, the VW Corrado and the VW Vento, both finishing.
I think the introduction of the it's a fast racing Corrado.
It's the VW Pioneer fast racing Corrado, finished in 100th position.
Didn't it do well?
Yeah.
Can't say that anymore. The Audi double I Audi. Yes, I think the key to what you were just saying about the variety is firstly the introduction to the TCR class that hasn't just brought one type of TCR in.
Correct.
It's brought the range of different types of TCR. So I think we had 4 or 5 different types of TCR class car in the race. But also I think a great addition is the idea of the different cup classes. So it doesn't really matter whether you're running a Toyota GT86 club car, whether you're running a BMW Cup car, whether you're running a KTM Crossbow Cup car, all of those are welcome, and they bring in different varieties of car with people that want to go racing, and so it kind of matches itself up really nicely.
Well, the podium celebration's about to get underway for the overall positions. And a small but intensely excitable crowd are underneath the winner's gantry. I do like the tradition here of having proper garlands as well for the winners.
Golden garlands.
Golden garlands, yeah.
And
coming out in 3rd position, Frank Stipler and Peter Turr. Stepping up to the right-hand side of the podium for the ROWE 6 hours ADAC Ruhr Pokal Rennen.
Organised by the MSC Ruhr Blitz of Bochum, who have been running this race since 1963, and in the VLN as part of that championship since 1985. So as with a lot of the VLN and the Nürburgring clubs involved that have been involved for a very long time indeed, and as you say, traditions run long and hard and deep in the Eifel region. And
long may that continue. I think it's a great idea to have all these clubs involved. It takes a huge amount of effort for the VLN races to be put on, so those clubs all helping with organisation, with marshals. And Mathieu Jaminet is among the drivers coming out, so did get a go in the car, along with Romain Dumas and Kevin Estra And Manthey Racing take another victory on the home ground at the Nürburgring Nordschleife. That's 4 out of 5 wins to Olaf Manthey's team this year in the championship. And we should be able to hear the national anthem of the winning entrant, that of Manthey and Germany. So the national anthem fades into the background for us here, at least. Apologies if we're talking it over it on the video stream. Paul, your final thoughts?
It was a great race in the middle, and as ever, the VLN...
It was a bonkers race at the start.
It was a bonkers race at the start, that was true. The dominance, though, that Manthey managed to assert for the last quarter of the race, very close, to just ease themselves away to the point where, as you say, they were able to take the luxury pit stop. But the car, looking absolutely magnificent throughout. It's been dominant in the VLN in 2017 thus far. 4 race wins out of 5 that we've had, and you wouldn't really want to bet against it in the future. But I think the beauty, the joy of covering these races is not just who wins, it's what's going on in the depth of the field. It's got huge depth, strength in the depth of the field, the different types of classes, different types of cars, and the humour, the good natured way that the race is run, and the race itself runs extremely well. Great fun to watch.
That looks like the Gigaspeed team coming out for SP7, and inside the top 10, that's John and Janine, and they're coming out. Thank you very much for taking the time out this Saturday, or indeed Sunday, for those of you on the other side of the world, to be with us. Another VLN race in a couple of weeks' time, and it'll be Johnny and Bruce on duty for that. Next weekend, your choice of 3 types of racing from IMSA, from 24H series, and from the ELMS, spread across our channels here on the network of Radio Show Limited. Thanks to Tim Gray, our executive producer, to our technical partners Vega for the pictures and the facilities at the circuit. Paul Trustwell and John Hindhoff on the words. Hope you'll join us for more VLN racing throughout the rest of the season. And a reminder that motorsport lives on the Radio Show Limited network. We've got more live than anyone else, and we cover motorsport from around the world. See you next time. Bye-bye.